The families who wintered in the great lighthouse of the North Atlantic knew something we've forgotten. They understood how to make a stone tower battered by hurricane-force gales into a sanctuary of warmth and order. They mastered the physics of light and mechanics, keeping a colossal, life-saving lamp burning for months on end without a single watt of electricity. They engineered systems of survival on isolated rocks, turning rainwater, salted provisions, and sheer ingenuity into a fortress against the world's most violent seas. And when the unthinkable happened, when the lamp failed, when the supply ship was weeks overdue, when the storm threatened to shatter the very glass of the lantern, they had emergency protocols that saved not only their own lives, but the lives of countless unseen sailors. In our modern world of GPS, automated beacons, and instant communication, we've lost the visceral connection to what it took to survive a winter night when failure meant ships wrecked before dawn. How did these lighthouse families do it? What marvels of engineering did they command with nothing but brass, glass, and oil? And why have we forgotten the incredible systems of duty and resilience that kept the light and our ancestors alive? Hey, a quick thing before we dive in. If you find yourself coming back to these stories, it would mean a lot if you hit like or subscribed. I'm always curious where this finds you. So drop your city and the time in the comments. Alright, tonight we're on a remote rock in the North Atlantic, the 1890s. But wait, get truly comfortable first. I'm serious. Settle into your chair. Pull a blanket over you because where we're going, you're going to feel a chill that has nothing to do with the temperature. The first thing that hits you isn't the cold, but the sound. A low, ceaseless moan from the sea that works its way through 2 feet of solid granite and into your bones. Your eyes snap open to the deep, pre-dawn gloom of an 1895 winter morning on the Black Rock Lighthouse. The gale outside has been screaming for 3 days, and inside the tower's living quarters, the air is thick with the damp chill of the ocean. Your face is cold while the rest of your body is burrowed under a mound of heavy wool blankets, the scent of salt and coal smoke clinging to them. In the bunk across the small circular room, your younger sister is a motionless lump, her breath invisible in the damp air. Last night's coal in the small cast iron stove has burned down to a deep red glow. Those embers are precious. If they've gone out completely, bringing the stove back to life will be a long, miserable chore. Not like in your cozy home right now, where the worst consequence of a furnace failure is a chilly morning and a call for service. For the Croft family, and the handful of families like them tending the great offshore lights, a failed heating system in a North Atlantic winter meant a dampness that could lead to sickness, a sickness that could mean death with the doctor, an impassable sea away. Your father, Elias Croft, is already up. You hear the soft scrape of his boots on the stone floor. Unlike your bed right now, his feet are landing on flagstones that feel perpetually wet. He doesn't waste motion. He sleeps in his wool work trousers and shirt, but moves directly to the stove, his body hunched not against cold, but against the constant subtle vibration of the tower as 100-ton waves crash against its base. Elara, he says quietly to your mother, a bit of light. You can just see her silhouette as she reaches for the small oil lamp on the wall gimbal. The strike of the match seems to fight the damp air. For a second, the small flame shows her face, weary, resolute, her hair damp from the ever-present sea spray that finds its way through every seal. Wicked blow, your father says, his voice a low rumble. He opens the stove door, the hinges groaning in protest. He isn't just checking the fire, he's listening to the sound of the metal, ensuring no cracks have formed from the constant stress. A broken stove would be a disaster. He studies the embers. You hold your breath. The entire family's comfort for the day depends on what he sees in that firebox. There's life in it, he says, a note of satisfaction in his voice. Hand me the peat. This isn't just about getting warm. You are witnessing the daily ritual of maintaining a habitable microclimate in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Each of your father's actions follows a precise sequence, learned from the grizzled keeper who trained him. First, he arranges a few small, dry pieces of driftwood salvaged from the sea and dried for months near the stove. Then he adds the peat, dense bricks of compressed bog soil brought by the supply tender, which will burn slow and steady, fighting the damp far better than wood alone. He doesn't toss it in. He builds a careful structure over the embers, ensuring airflow. The tide's turned, he says, though there are no windows to see it. The tower is taking the waves head on now. I can feel it in the floor. That's you. At 14, you're old enough to serve as the assistant keeper. You nod in the gloom. Your father kneels, puts his face near the stove's opening, and blows not in short puffs, but in long, controlled streams of air, coaxing the embers to life. It's a skill, one of 100 small, vital skills that keep you all alive. The embers glow brighter, and a tiny flame catches the edge of the driftwood. He adds a few larger pieces of peat, creating a miniature fortress of fuel that will radiate steady, even heat. Isabel, check the cistern pump, your mother tells your older sister. Isabel groans, pulling herself from her bunk and wrapping a heavy shawl around her shoulders. She moves to a small, hand-operated pump in the corner and works the handle. Sluggish, she reports, and the water tastes of salt. The spray must be getting past the seal on the roof tank. Your mother sighs. We'll have to boil everything again. She rises, her own bunk creaking. The youngest, your 8-year-old sister Clara, remains bundled, sharing her bunk with the lighthouse cat Fog, a creature whose own survival depends on the family's. Elias, how is the light? Your mother asks, pulling on a thick woolen sweater over her nightdress. Layers are life. Your father doesn't need to look. Decades of living in lighthouses have attuned his senses to the tower's rhythm. The rotation is steady. I can hear the clockwork ticking between waves, but the vibration is putting a strain on the lens. I'll need to double-check the mercury seals this morning. Worse than the great gale of '92? She asks, referring to a legendary storm that had cracked one of the outer panes of the lantern room glass, miles from land. Not yet, he says, but the sea has another day of building to do. The worst is yet to come. He's building the fire now, adding a few lumps of precious coal, rationing them carefully. Too much, too fast, would be a waste of the finite supply that has to last until the spring tender. This daily ritual is the foundation of your survival. The knowledge of how to balance 3 different types of fuel to create the optimal heat against a relentless, damp-infused cold is more valuable than gold. Thomas, time to get up, your mother calls to you. Your father will need you in the lantern room. Reluctantly, you slide out from the relative warmth of your bunk. The air hits you not with a sharp cold, but a heavy, wet chill that feels like it's trying to soak into your skin. You dress quickly, pulling on a second pair of thick wool socks your mother knitted from yarn that came on the last supply ship 3 months ago. Your destination is a vertical journey up the winding cast iron staircase that spirals through the center of the tower. With each step, the roar of the storm grows louder. The bare stone walls around you are cool and slick with condensation. You pass the oil room, a chamber filled with barrels of paraffin, the lifeblood of the light, and you can smell its clean, sharp scent. The staircase becomes steeper, narrower, until you reach the service room just below the lantern. Your father is already there, checking the intricate brass and steel clockwork mechanism that is the heart of the lighthouse. It looks like a giant grandfather clock with polished gears and a system of weights that descends through the central column of the tower. The governor's running a bit fast, he says, pointing to a set of spinning arms that regulate the speed. The vibration is throwing it off. We'll need to adjust the counterweights. He hands you a wrench. This is your classroom and your workshop. You've been learning the complex mechanics of this machine since you were old enough to hold a tool. A light that rotates too fast or too slow gives a false signal, turning it from a lifesaver into a deadly liar for any ship trying to find its position. The lantern room above is a space of sublime, terrifying beauty, a cathedral of glass and brass housing the magnificent Fresnel lens. It stands 12 feet tall, a beehive of crystal prisms and lenses arranged to capture every ray of light from the central lamp and focus it into a single piercing beam. The entire assembly, weighing several tons, floats in a circular trough of mercury, allowing it to be turned by the gentle force of the clockwork mechanism. Check the wicks, your father instructs, his voice raised over the howl of the wind against the glass. You climb a small ladder to the lamp itself, a multi-wick paraffin burner that is the source of the 500,000 candle power beam. The wicks must be trimmed perfectly. An uneven wick creates soot, which will foul the lens and dangerously diminish the light. As you work, your fingers nimble from years of practice, you can feel the entire tower shudder as a particularly large wave strikes its base. You glance out at the sea. It's not water, but a churning gray chaos of foam and spray, a world where the sea and sky have merged. Lens is clear, your father shouts from the other side, where he's polishing the inside of the giant glass panels. Any speck of dust, any film of salt can reduce the light's range by miles. And the mercury, you ask, holding steady. This tower was built to take a beating. This is the reality of lighthouse life, a constant battle against entropy. Every system, heating, mechanical, optical, requires relentless maintenance. A single missed detail, a moment of inattention could lead to catastrophe. Your father sits at the small workbench, making a delicate adjustment to the clockwork's escapement with the jeweler's file. "Thomas, time to haul the oil," he says after a few moments. "We need a full day's supply in the service tank before the weather gets any worse." Reluctantly, you leave the relative warmth of the lantern room. The lamp itself generates considerable heat, and descend to the oil room. The barrels of paraffin are stacked in neat rows. You and your sister Isabel have the unenviable task of pumping the oil by hand from a barrel into a carrying canister, then hauling it up 10 flights of spiraling stairs. The oil is cold and thick, making the pumping slow and arduous. Your fingers, despite your gloves, ache with the chill of the metal pump handle. By the time you haul the second canister to the service room, the fire in the living quarters has finally begun to push back the damp chill. Your mother has a pot of porridge bubbling on the stovetop. "Good work," your father says. Taking the canister from you, he carefully filters the oil through a chamois cloth before pouring it into the lamp's service tank. Any drop of water could cause the flame to sputter or even explode. "Now, help your mother secure the storm shutters on the lower windows while I finish the calibrations." The lower living quarters have thick iron shutters that can be bolted from the inside. As you and your mother swing the heavy plates into place and drive the bolts home, the room is plunged into near total darkness, lit only by the stove and a single oil lamp. The roar of the sea is now more muffled, but the sense of being in a fortress under siege is complete. Papa says the barometer is still falling. Your mother says, as she works, if the storm lasts, we'll be on short rations by next week. Your father nods grimly when you relay this. I know. I was hoping to see the tender before Christmas, but no ship can get near us in this sea. This is the constant reality of your life. A relentless calculation of supplies, weather, and duty. Every decision is weighed. Burn more coal for warmth and risk running out before the tender arrives, or endure the damp chill to conserve fuel. Use more oil for a brighter light and deplete the supply, or risk a ship not seeing the beam from far enough away. By now, the living space has reached what passes for comfort, perhaps 55 degrees, but with a bone-deep dampness the heat can't quite conquer. The frost that had formed on the inside of the iron window frames hasn't melted. It simply glistens in the lamplight. Breakfast, your mother announces. The family gathers at the small table bolted to the floor. Your father takes his bowl but doesn't sit. I need to watch the light, he says. The rotation felt off by a fraction of a second on that last turn. He climbs the stairs again, his porridge uneaten. The rest of you eat quickly. There's little talk during a storm. It's hard to hear over the constant roar. Every ounce of energy counts. Isabel, when you're done, help me prepare the rope mats, your mother says between bites. The rope mats are another crucial part of the tower storm defense. Kept near the stove to stay dry, these heavy woven mats are unrolled and placed on the floor. In a severe storm, waves can strike the tower with such force that water is driven up through microscopic fissures in the stone, causing the floor to weep. The mats absorb this water, preventing dangerous slick puddles. You select 2 mats, their dry, tarred rope smell a comforting reassurance. They are heavy, and you and Isabel struggle to roll them into place. The staircase door opens and your father returns, his face grim. It's worse than I thought, he reports, finally sitting to eat his now cold porridge. The main drive gear for the rotation is grinding. The vibration must have knocked a tooth out of alignment. I can't fix it while it's running. Your mother looks up, her expression sharp. And the light? It's still turning. But if that gear fails, the lens will stop. A fixed light is a death sentence for any ship that thinks it's the Black Rock beacon. He chews his food without tasting it. I'll have to time the waves. When we get a lull, I'll have 2 minutes, maybe 3, to try and reset the gear. I'll need your help, Thomas. The reality of winter survival on the Black Rock becomes clear. There is no rest, no break from the constant work of maintaining the systems that keep you and others alive. Every day brings new critical tasks that cannot be delayed. We'll start as soon as it's fully light, your father says. I need to be able to see the teeth on that gear. At 14, you are old enough to be entrusted with the most critical tasks. You nod, though a knot of fear tightens in your stomach. A mistake in the lantern room could plunge your family and any ship trusting your light into darkness. As you help your mother clear the breakfast things, you glance at the barometer on the wall. The needle has fallen lower than you've ever seen it. The storm hasn't even peaked. A nor'easter's coming, your father says, reading your thoughts. I can feel it in the way the tower is swaying. We have maybe 6 hours before the worst of it hits. 6 hours to repair a complex mechanical drive system 150 feet in the air in a vibrating tower during the worst storm in a decade. 6 hours to secure the tower, check all the systems, and prepare for the worst. Just another winter day at the Black Rock Lighthouse, where every sunrise is a victory won from the sea, and every steady rotation of the light is the difference between life and death. And somewhere in the back of your mind, as you prepare to face the screaming gale, you wonder how many more storms the old tower can survive. How many more mornings of near disaster and desperate repairs. But there's no time for such thoughts now. The stove is burning, the light is turning, and there's work to be done. Survival work, the kind our ancestors mastered, and we have forgotten. In your comfortable, stable home, you should be thankful that the only vibration you feel is your phone buzzing. The keepers of the light would have considered such stillness a miracle beyond belief. You ascend the spiral staircase behind your father, and the fury of the storm intensifies with each step. It's the kind of wind that doesn't just howl, it shrieks, a physical pressure that makes the iron railings vibrate under your hand. Stay close to the inner wall. Your father shouts over the din. The spray is coming through the seals. You can see it now, a fine saltwater mist that coats the stone on the weather side of the tower, making the steps slick and treacherous. The sun is up, but the storm has cloaked the world in a bruised gray twilight. You can tell by the sound that the tide is high. The waves are no longer just striking the base, but climbing the tower itself. Your father hands you a set of oilskin overalls, a foul weather garment that smells of tar and the sea. Put these on over your clothes, he instructs. We'll be soaked in minutes up there. The lantern room is a maelstrom of sound and motion. The great lens continues its majestic, silent rotation in its bath of mercury, a point of serene order in the surrounding chaos. But the clockwork mechanism that drives it is making a new sound, a rhythmic metallic grinding that is deeply wrong. There, your father points, the main cog on the secondary drive shaft. The vibration has shaken it loose on its key. This is no exaggeration. A gear that slips its key could shear off, causing the entire rotation to halt abruptly. The sudden stop could even damage the delicate lens prisms. As you work, your mind drifts to the main task ahead, keeping the light functional. Without that steady timed flash, the family's purpose, their entire world, falls apart. The Croft family, like all keepers, had turned lighthouse maintenance into a science. It wasn't just about polishing brass. It was about understanding metallurgy, fluid dynamics, optics, and clockwork mechanics. By the time you finish your initial inspection, your father has laid out a precise set of tools on a canvas roll. You join him without being asked. Everyone works without prompting during a storm. There's no room for hesitation when lives are on the line. I'm gonna try to disengage the drive, he instructs, shouting to be heard. When I do, the lens will stop. You and I will have to turn it by hand to keep the signal correct while I work on the gear. Your mother will be timing us from below. This manual rotation is the emergency backup system, an exhausting, back-breaking procedure. The multi-ton lens assembly is perfectly balanced, but still requires immense, steady effort to turn by hand at the precise, specified speed. Pack it tight, he says, showing you how to wedge a temporary block of wood into the mechanism to prevent it from re-engaging unexpectedly. We want this solid, no mistakes. This block of wood is ingenious in its simplicity, a low-tech solution to a high-tech problem. Your mother and sisters are depending on this repair to keep the tower safe and functional. With the urgent mechanical work ready to begin, your father leads you to the outer gallery, a narrow iron walkway that circles the lantern room to inspect the glass. He tethers both of you to the rail with thick safety ropes. The moment you open the heavy iron door, the storm hits you like a physical blow. The wind rips the air from your lungs, and the spray is like being shot with pellets of ice. The south pane has a crack, your father yells, pointing to a fine, spidery line near the frame of one of the huge glass panels. Another direct wave strike, and we could lose the whole pane. A broken pane would be catastrophic, allowing the full force of the storm into the lantern room, where it could extinguish the lamp and destroy the lens. We'll bring the storm shield up, he decides. We'll rig it from the inside. This is an extreme measure. The storm shield is a massive sheet of iron stored in the service room that can be bolted over a pane from the interior. It will block a significant portion of the light, but it's better than losing the lantern room entirely. What about the vent cowl? You ask, pointing to the copper ventilator on the roof, which is wobbling dangerously in the wind. It'll have to hold. We can't get on the roof in this. Losing the cowl is better than losing the glass. The winter economy of survival becomes clear in these decisions. Every component of the tower, every system, is triaged in a constant calculation of risk. With the immediate inspection complete, your father turns to the real work. Get ready on the crank handles, he says. I'm gonna disengage the clockwork. The crank handles are part of the manual rotation system, heavy iron levers that fit onto the base of the lens pedestal. You and he take your positions. You hear your mother's voice call up the speaking tube, a simple pipe that runs the height of the tower. Ready for timing? Disengaging now, your father shouts. He pulls a heavy lever, and with a final ugly grind, the clockwork falls silent. The great lens coasts to a halt. The sudden silence from the mechanism is more terrifying than the storm's roar. Turn, your father commands. You both lean into the cranks, your muscles straining to move the immense weight of the lens. It begins to move, slowly, ponderously. Below, your mother watches a clock, calling out timings through the tube to ensure you maintain the light's unique characteristic, its specific pattern of flash and eclipse, while you and your sister Isabel, who has come up to help maintain the grueling rotation, your father works with quiet, focused intensity on the damaged gear. His hands, though large and calloused, move with the delicacy of a surgeon's, using files and shims to reseat the cog. Your grandfather could rebuild one of these clockworks in the dark, your father says during a brief pause while Isabel takes a turn on your crank. He even made his own gears once when a supply ship was lost. How, you ask, flexing your aching shoulders? He understood the metal, comes the simple reply. Knew how to anneal it, how to file a tooth by feel. He said a good keeper feels the machine as part of his own body. This is more than a family story. It's a lesson in the deep intuitive engineering that was the hallmark of the lighthouse service. When every replacement part was a 3-month wait away, working smart was the only way to work. The gear is finally reset. The wooden block is removed. Engaging, your father shouts. He throws the lever, and with a smooth, clean click, the clockwork re-engages. The great lens picks up its steady, automated rotation once more. The grinding sound is gone. Good, your father says with satisfaction, clean as a whistle. No more manual turning. Now begins the real labor, securing the storm shield over the cracked pane. It's a heavy, awkward piece of metal that must be maneuvered into place in the cramped space between the lens and the glass, then bolted tight. The whole family helps, using a small block and tackle to hoist the shield into position. Let's get the pitch ready, your father says, referring to the hot, tar-like substance used to seal the edges of the shield and make it watertight. This is another example of the specific, crucial knowledge required for survival. Pitch too cold won't seal. Pitch too hot could crack the glass from thermal shock. As you work, your father explains why different systems of the lighthouse were designed the way they were. The lens floats on Mercury because it's nearly frictionless, he says, but also because the Mercury's weight helps dampen the tower's vibration. The whole thing is a balanced system. He describes how the tower's slight taper is designed not just for stability, but to deflect waves upward, dissipating their energy. The men who built this place, he says, they didn't have computers. They had knowledge passed down from the Romans. They knew the sea. By mid-afternoon, the storm shield is in place, and the light, though partially obscured, is secure. Your father turns his attention to the lamp itself. The increased vibration has caused the wicks to burn unevenly. We'll have to change the mantle, he decides, referring to the delicate mesh sock that incandesces in the flame to create a brilliant light. It's a nerve-wracking task. A new mantle is fragile and can easily be broken. As you work, the storm intensifies. The tower now seems to be in constant motion, a slow, rhythmic swaying that is deeply unsettling. The storm's coming faster than I thought, your father says suddenly, looking at the barometer, which has continued its precipitous drop. We'll skip the full cleaning. As long as the light is turning and burning, that's all that matters. Let's get below and secure the living quarters. You help your mother and sisters check every seal, stuffing oil-soaked rags into any gap that might be admitting water. The rope mats on the floor are now dark with moisture, proving their worth. That's about all we can do, your father estimates after a final check. Now we ride it out. He goes to the stove, adding a careful measure of coal and peat. We'll need a steady fire all night, he explains. The damp is our enemy now. He looks at you and your sisters, all of you exhausted from the day's labor. Your mother and I will take watches tonight, he says. One of us will be awake at all times, listening to the light. Inside, the family has done all it can to secure their fortress. The stove radiates a steady heat. The light overhead continues its faithful rotation, and the tower stands firm against the screaming gale. As you try to rest in your bunk, you realize that what you participated in today wasn't just chores. It was a sophisticated dance of engineering, seamanship, and raw courage that keeps the light burning against impossible odds, a beacon of order in a world of chaos. The stove crackles, consuming the peat you helped haul, transforming its ancient stored energy into the heat that stands between your family and the cold, damp fury of the North Atlantic. The blizzard rages outside, transforming the world into a howling vortex of wind and sea. Inside the lighthouse, your family's gathered in the small living quarters, listening to the colossal waves detonate against the stone tower. It sounds like cannon fire, your sister Clara says, her eyes wide. Your father nods. A storm like this would tear a ship to pieces in minutes. You can feel the tower testing its foundations, groaning, shuddering with each impact. When an especially large wave hits, it finds a weakness, and a thin stream of seawater forces its way through a mortar joint, trickling down the curved stone wall. Elias, the west wall is weeping again, your mother says, pointing to the dark, spreading stain. Your father frowns. I thought I sealed that seam last summer. He rises from his seat near the stove, the most coveted spot in the tower, and runs his hand over the damp stone. The mortar's failed, he announces. The force of the waves has pulverized it. This isn't a simple leak, it's a breach in the tower's armor. Every drop of salt water that enters brings the destructive, corrosive power of the sea into your home, threatening your supplies and your health. We'll need to make a temporary plug, he says, turning to your mother. Elara, do we have any of that oakum left? A small bundle in the supply chest, she confirms, and the pitch kettle is still warm. This exchange might seem cryptic, but you know exactly what it means. You've assisted with this emergency procedure before.
Thomas, your father says, fetch the marlin spike and a mallet from the tool chest.
The big one. You retrieve the tools, a pointed iron spike used for rope work, and a heavy wooden hammer. Your mother opens a small canvas bag and pulls out a tangled mass of what looks like loose, dark rope fibers. This is oakum, old rope painstakingly unraveled and soaked in tar. It has been used for centuries to seal the seams of wooden ships. In this stone tower, it serves the same purpose. Nothing is wasted in a lighthouse keeper's world. Isabel, bring the pitch pot, your father instructs. The systems at work here represent generations of maritime knowledge. What your family is preparing is a specialized emergency sealant. Basic mortar would be useless. The water pressure would blow it out before it could set. But this combination of materials is designed for precisely these conditions. The dense, tarry oakum provides a fibrous, flexible plug, and the hot pitch, when poured over it, will cool and harden into a waterproof, rock-hard seal. The trick is to drive it in against the water pressure, your father mutters, packing a wad of oakum into the weeping seam. You have to work between waves, when the pressure eases for a second. This knowledge, how to feel the rhythm of the sea through the stone and time a repair to its cadence, is the essence of a keeper's craft. It's not written in any manual. It's learned through years of living inside the storm. I'll hold the lamp, your mother offers, lifting the oil lamp from its gimbal to provide more direct light. Your father takes the marlin spike, places its point against the oakum, and waits, his body tensed. You can all feel a massive wave building, culminating in a deafening boom and a shudder that runs through the tower. As the vibration subsides, he shouts, "Now!" and strikes the head of the spike with the mallet, driving the oakum deep into the fissure. He repeats this process again and again, packing the seam tighter and tighter. "That should hold it," he says, stepping back. "Now the pitch." The entire repair takes less than 10 minutes, but it's a critical piece of maintenance that preserves the integrity of your home. In a modern house, a small water leak is an annoyance. In a North Atlantic lighthouse, it's a potentially fatal wound. Your father returns to his place by the stove, warming his hands. The shriek of the wind seems to intensify as if angered by the family's defense. "Reminds me of the winter of '88, he says to your mother, "at the Eddystone Light." She nods grimly. That poor lad from the mainland, green as grass, didn't understand what a weeping wall meant. "What happened to him?" Isabel asks. Your parents exchange a look. Finally, your father speaks. His freshwater barrels were stored too close to the wall. The spray got into them. By the time the tender arrived in the spring, he was dead from dehydration and fever. The room falls silent. The only sounds the crackle of the stove and the storm's fury. The story is a stark reminder of what's at stake. "That's why I'm always on about keeping the store sealed and dry," your father continues. "It's not just about comfort, it's about life." Clara, who has been quietly playing with shells near the stove, looks up. "Is the sea gonna get us, Papa?" "No, lass," your father assures her firmly. "This tower is strong. Your mother and I know its ways." This is no idle boast. The Black Rock Lighthouse represents the pinnacle of 19th century marine engineering, a set of techniques developed over generations of building in the world's most violent seas. "Tell us about building the tower again," you request, always fascinated by the story. Your father settles back. Well, it wasn't just a pile of rocks, it was a puzzle. What follows is not just a story, but a lesson in the engineering that keeps you alive. First thing they did, your father begins, was cut the foundation stones to interlock, like the pieces of your sister's jigsaw puzzle, and they cut them on shore, numbering each one, before bringing them out here on a barge. Even the quarrying of the granite was precisely calculated. Each stone was tapered, so the force of a wave would only wedge it more tightly into place. They dovetailed them, he continues. Each stone is locked into the ones above, below, and on both sides. There's no mortar on the outer face, just stone ground against stone so perfectly not even a knife blade can fit between them. Isabel interjects, and it's solid for the first 50 feet. Your father nods. That's right. No rooms, no stairs. Just a solid pillar of granite to break the waves. That's why we're so high up. The living quarters start above the reach of the biggest storm waves. This level of engineering detail demonstrates the sophistication hidden in these seemingly simple towers. Each feature served multiple purposes: structural integrity, wave deflection, and survival. But the real secret, he continues, is the curve. It's not straight. It has a slight, graceful curve like an old oak tree. It's designed to guide the water up and away, to exhaust the wave's energy before it can deliver a killing blow to the lantern room. The science of this parabolic curve was perfected by men like Smeaton and the Stevensons, legendary lighthouse builders who studied nature to understand how to resist it. And the lantern room glass, your mother adds. Tell them about that. Ah, the glass, your father chuckles. Thick as your thumb, and installed from the inside, each pane overlaps the next like shingles on a roof, so the wind pressure just seals them tighter. And the whole thing is designed to flex just a tiny bit. If it were perfectly rigid, it would shatter. The conversation shifts to other innovations. Your father describes the lightning conductor, a thick copper strip that runs from the very top of the lantern down into the sea, protecting the tower from strikes. He explains the ingenious system of gutters on the lantern gallery that collect precious rainwater and funnel it down a pipe to the cistern in the base of the tower. As dusk approaches, your father makes his preparations for the night. He brings extra coal and peat up from the storage level, selecting specific pieces for the overnight fire. We need a slow, hot fire to fight the damp while we sleep, he explains. That's a job for the coal. The night fire is built differently, a deep bed of peat for longevity, with a carefully constructed mound of coal on top that will burn slowly from the top down, maintaining a consistent heat for hours. If I build this right, he says, we'll still have hot coals at dawn. As darkness falls, the family prepares for bed, which simply means adding a layer of clothing. You sleep in most of your clothes during a storm. The sleeping bunks are built into the curved walls of the tower like berths on a ship, maximizing the small living space. Your parents perform a final check. The stove damper is set, the internal storm doors are secured, and the speaking tube to the service room is uncovered so your father can hear any change in the sound of the light's mechanism, even in his sleep. The wind should peak around midnight, your father predicts, tapping the barometer. If our seals hold till then, they'll hold till morning. As you settle into your bunk, pulling the heavy, slightly damp wool blankets to your chin, you can still hear the storm's unrelenting assault. But instead of fear, you feel a deep, abiding respect for the invisible systems that keep you safe. The dovetailed stones, the curved walls, the overlapping glass, the carefully tended fire. These aren't just building techniques. They're the accumulated survival knowledge of generations. a sophisticated science of the sea that allows your small family to live and work in the heart of its beautiful, deadly power. In the deepest hour of the night, you are jolted awake by a sound that is profoundly wrong. Not the roar of the storm, but a high-pitched metallic shriek from above, followed by a sudden jarring silence in the tower's rhythmic heartbeat. Your eyes snap open in the pitch-dark room. Elias. Your mother's voice is sharp with urgency. The light. The rotation has stopped. You hear your father drop from his bunk, his feet hitting the stone floor. The living quarters have grown colder, the stove's heat unable to fight the intensified fury of the storm. The main gear must have failed, your father says, his voice unnervingly calm. The one I repaired. He's already pulling on his oilskins. You understand immediately. With the light's rotation stopped, the massive lens is now acting like a magnifying glass, focusing the lamp's immense heat onto one small section of the lantern's glass panes. The focus heat can cause the thick glass to crack or even explode within minutes. This is the ultimate lighthouse emergency. It stopped, your father reports, his voice tight with controlled panic. I'm going up. Thomas, I need you. That's you. Without a word, you slide from your bunk and into your own foul-weather gear. There is no time for fear. When the light is in peril, you are no longer a child. You are the assistant keeper. The air in the tower feels heavy, charged with crisis. Your mother lights the emergency lantern, its flames sputtering in the drafts. By its unsteady light, you follow your father up the winding stairs. With each step, the smell of scorching paint and superheated metal grows stronger. Ready? He asks as you reach the service room door. It will be hot in there. You nod, and he throws the door open. A blast of heat, and thick with the smell of burning oil and ozone, washes over you. The lantern room is a terrifying sight. The great lens is motionless. The lamp inside still burns with furious intensity, and the section of the lens aimed at the inner glass panes is glowing with a faint, shimmering heat. A thin crack has already appeared in the thick glass of the lantern room. We have to get it turning, your father shouts. Now, forget the clockwork. To the manual cranks. You and he leap to the emergency crank handles, fitting them to the pedestal. You throw your combined weight against them, but the lens, which should turn smoothly in its mercury bath, refuses to budge. It's seized, your father cries, his calm finally breaking. The heat has warped the housing. The situation has just escalated from a crisis to a potential catastrophe. The glass could explode at any second, destroying the entire lantern room and extinguishing the light for good. The lamp. Your father decides in a split second. We have to douse the lamp. This is a keeper's ultimate taboo, extinguishing the light during a storm, but you have no choice. Your father scrambles up the ladder to the lamp housing. The brass is so hot it's beginning to discolor. He uses a thick leather glove to turn the fuel valve, but it's fused from the heat. The blanket, he yells, soak it. Your mother and Isabel have arrived, their faces pale in the pulsating glow. Your mother grabs a heavy wool firefighting blanket from its case, while Isabel works the cistern pump, drenching it with precious fresh water. They pass the heavy sopping blanket up to your father. Shielding his face, he throws the wet wool over the entire lamp housing. There is a terrifying hiss, and a cloud of steam fills the room, blinding you all. For a moment, the light continues to glow through the wool. Then, slowly, it fades, plunging the lantern room into an almost total darkness, broken only by the faint glow of the hot metal and the storm-lit sea outside. The immediate danger of explosion has passed, but a new, terrible reality sets in. The Black Rock Light, a vital beacon for any ship caught in this storm, is dark. "Get those hands seen to," your mother says, her voice trembling slightly. She is already moving toward your father, who is cradling his hand. You know the routine. Warming cold extremities is a delicate art, so is treating burns. Too much salve can trap heat and worsen the damage. You fetch the medical kit, which contains a special tin of cool linseed oil and lime water, the standard lighthouse service treatment for burns. Your mother expertly applies the soothing mixture to your father's reddened, blistering skin. This casual expertise, the ability to act as a doctor and nurse hundreds of miles from help, is another facet of a keeper's life. Your father barely flinches. His mind is already on the next problem. "The light is out," he says, his voice heavy with the weight of that failure. "We have to provide a temporary light. Anything." By now, everyone is awake. The family operates with the quiet efficiency of a well-drilled crew. Even in the face of disaster, everyone has a role. "We'll need to set up the emergency signal," your father announces. This statement marks the shift to a protocol you've practiced but never had to use. It is the lighthouse keeper's last resort. "The spare lamps and the signal cannon?" your mother asks, and your father nods. The emergency signal is a desperate, improvised system. It involves placing several large, spare oil lamps in the now dark lantern room to create a small, fixed light, not nearly as powerful as the main beam, but better than nothing. More importantly, it involves the signal cannon. "Thomas, Isabel, help me with the lamps," your father instructs, his burned hand now bandaged. Together, you haul the heavy spare lamps up the final flight of stairs. They are essentially oversized hurricane lamps, designed to be simple and reliable. You place them inside the great lens, where their feeble light will at least be focused into a weak beam. While you work, your mother and sister are below, preparing the signal cannon. This small cannon, a relic from an older time, is kept for one purpose: to be fired at regular intervals as a fog signal, or in this case, a catastrophic failure signal. Its sound, carried on the storm, will warn any ship that comes too close that the light they see is not the true Black Rock beacon. The family huddles in the service room below the lantern, the warmest place in the tower. The temporary lamps provide a dim, flickering light and a small amount of heat. "I'll stay up and tend the lamps," your father decides. Your mother shakes her head. "We'll take shifts." "You need to rest that hand." They agree to 1-hour rotations for the rest of the night. The family maintains a grim vigil. Every 20 minutes, your father or mother goes out onto the storm-swept gallery, tethered by a safety line, and fires the cannon into the screaming gale. The boom is swallowed by the storm, but you pray the sound carries. The rest of the family tends the temporary lamps, ensuring their wicks burn cleanly. As dawn approaches, the storm begins to break. The wind lessens its fury, and the sea's rhythm changes from chaotic violence to a more measured, heavy swell. Your father, his face etched with exhaustion, inspects the damage in the pale light. The great lens is intact, but the lamp is destroyed, and the rotation mechanism is a mass of warped metal. "It will take the tender weeks to bring the parts we need," he says quietly, "if they can even find them." Yet, despite the disaster, the Croft family has survived the night. Their layered approach to emergency protocols, from the firefighting blanket to the burn treatment, from the temporary lamps to the signal cannon, has seen them through the ultimate test. As you help clean up the debris, you realize that what your family accomplished wasn't just a repair. It was an act of profound courage and ingenuity, applying a deep, almost instinctive knowledge of their world to avert total disaster. This is the forgotten science of the keepers, not just maintaining the light, but knowing how to fight for it, how to improvise, and how to create a spark of hope in the deepest darkness. It is a science of duty and resilience, a legacy of those who stood against the storm so that others might find their way home. 3 days after the storm, a fragile calm has settled over the North Atlantic. The sky is a pale, washed-out blue, and the sea, though still rolling in a heavy swell, has lost its malice. The Black Rock Lighthouse stands scarred but defiant, a testament to its builder's skill. Your father stands on the gallery, sweeping the horizon with his long glass. "We need to signal the mainland," he announces. "The tender won't be scheduled for another month. They need to know the light is out." "Is it safe to go ashore?" your mother asks. The lighthouse has a small, sturdy boat, but launching it from the rock is a dangerous affair, even in calm seas. He shakes his head. "The swell is still too high for the boat. We'll have to use the heliograph." He turns to you. "Thomas, you're coming with me. Your eyes are sharper than mine." This isn't a request. At 14, you are trained in all forms of lighthouse communication, a critical skill set in a world without radio. "Bundle up," your mother instructs. "The wind still has a bite." The preparations for this task are as meticulous as any other. You dress in warm layers. Though the sun is out, the temperature is just above freezing, and the wind over the open water is deceptively cold. The heliograph is a simple, ingenious device for sending Morse code signals over long distances using reflected sunlight. It's essentially a mirror, mounted on a tripod with a shutter mechanism. In the age of telegraph cables, it was already becoming obsolete, but for an isolated station like Black Rock, it was a vital link to the outside world. "Take the emergency kit," your mother insists, handing your father the small leather pouch. Even a task performed on your own doorstep carries risk. A slip on the slick rocks could mean a broken leg, or worse. With the final check, you and your father make your way down the tower and out onto the narrow landing stage carved from the rock itself. The air feels clean and sharp after days spent inside the stuffy tower. "Keep your footing," your father reminds you, his voice echoing in the sudden quiet. "And watch for sleeper waves." You set up the heliograph on the highest point of the rock, its mirror aimed at a distant point on the mainland, 20 miles away, where the nearest Coast Guard station is located. Your father squints through the sighting scope. "There," he says, "I have the station in sight. They won't be looking for a signal, so we'll have to be patient." He begins to work the shutter, flashing the mirror to create the dots and dashes of Morse code. He sends the same message over and over. BRL, BRL, light, out, mechanism, fail, urgent, assistance, wreck, BRL. As he works, he quizzes you not just on the code, but on the principles behind it. "Why do we use long flashes for dashes and short for dots?" he asks. "Because a brief flash is easier to distinguish from a random glint of sun on water." You answer promptly. It's a system designed to be clear even with a weak signal. He nods. "And what's the most important signal of all?" "SOS," you reply. 3 dots, 3 dashes, 3 dots, no breaks. Recognized by all nations at sea, this call and response is how knowledge is passed, reinforcing critical information until it becomes second nature. After nearly an hour of fruitless signaling, you spot something. "A flash!" you shout, pointing. "Look!" Your father peers through the long glass. You're right. They've seen us. They're signaling back. He reads the distant flashes aloud. ACK, message, received, tender, dispatched, ETA, 48 hours, weather, permitting. A wave of relief, so profound it makes you feel weak, washes over you. You are no longer alone. Help is coming. Good work, son, your father says, clapping you on the shoulder. That's a keeper's work. This knowledge exchange, this connection to a wider world through a simple, elegant system, represents the community of the lighthouse service. You are isolated, but not alone. The keepers of other lights, the men on the tenders, the Coast Guard on the shore, you are all part of a network, bound by a common duty. 2 days later, the supply tender to the stalwart appears on the horizon. The sight of its smokestack is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. The ship can't dock at the rock. Instead, it anchors 100 yards off, and the dangerous work of transferring supplies and personnel begins. A large basket attached to a crane on the lighthouse gallery is swung out over the churning sea. The new parts for the lamp and a specialist mechanic are loaded into the basket from the tender's deck as it rises and falls on the heavy swell. It's a terrifying high wire act that requires perfect timing and iron nerves from both the tender's crew and your family. Your father directs the entire operation from the gallery, his voice calm and authoritative. The mechanic, a man named Finn, is swung across the gap first, landing on the rock with practiced ease. Heard you had some trouble, Elias, Finn says with a grin. A spot of bother, your father replies, with classic understatement. For the next 2 days, the lighthouse is a hive of activity. Finn, with your father and you assisting, works to rebuild the destroyed lamp and rotation mechanism. The women, meanwhile, direct the transfer of supplies, barrels of oil, sacks of coal, boxes of food, and precious bags of mail. Martha McClintock. No, that's from the reference. Ilara and the girls manage the supply transfer. During the work, Finn becomes a teacher. You see this new gear, he says to you, holding up a polished brass cog. It's made with a new phosphor bronze alloy, stronger, should hold up better to the vibration. This passing of new information from the central authority to the remote stations is how the service evolved and improved its technology. It was a constant feedback loop of practical experience and engineering innovation. By the end of the second day, the work is done. That evening, as dusk falls, your father has the honor of relighting the newly repaired lamp. As the great beam of light once again begins its majestic sweep across the sea, a cheer goes up from the crew of the tender. We can't thank you enough, your father says to Finn as he prepares to be swung back to the ship. No thanks needed, Finn replies. That's how it works out here. Last year, the keeper at Wolf Trap saved one of our lads who was washed overboard. We all look out for each other. This paying forward of aid and expertise formed the backbone of the lighthouse service, a recognition that the harsh environment demanded cooperation. That night, with the light turning steadily and the tower secure, you reflect on the community you are a part of. The technical skills your family possesses are only one part of the equation. Equally important are the social connections, the knowledge networks, and the systems of mutual aid that bind the keepers, the mechanics, and the tender crews together. This was the forgotten social science of the lighthouse keepers, not just the technical knowledge of maintaining a light, but the sophisticated community structures that made survival and success possible in one of the most isolated professions on Earth. The keepers who thrived weren't just skilled technicians, they were connected, resilient members of a vital human network. As you drift towards sleep in your comfortable modern bed, imagine the profound satisfaction of that life, the quiet confidence of knowing your work keeps others safe, and that in turn, a whole service is watching over you. There is something deeply human in this connection to our ancestors who faced the immense, lonely power of the sea with knowledge, courage, and a community forged in the heart of the storm.